Hi, today's agenda is how to communicate between two components using LWC. Now, this also we are going to do in reference with Aura. So, what are all the possibilities? First of all, data binding. In case of Aura, data binding meant that if I am passing one parameter from parent to child, if there is any child change in the parent, then does it get migrated to child or not? If there is any change in the child, does it get moved to the parent or not? But in terms of LWC, when someone asks you, suppose in interview, that what is data binding, it is different. And why do we use track decorator? That is what we are going to see. Next is, if you are passing an attribute from parent to child, we have already learned that in the Aura tutorial. And how you could do that in LWC is by declaring the child attribute with at the rate API decorator. We are going to see that. Now, if you want to communicate from child to parent in Aura, you used to use component event. But in case of LWC, when you want to communicate from child to parent, then you need to use a custom event. Now, if there are two unrelated components in a single application in Aura, you used application event. But if there are two unrelated components in LWC and we want to form a communication between them, then we could either use pubsub or we could use LMS. Now, the last one is we were able to call child components method from parent component using Aura method in Aura, correct? So similarly, if you want to call child components method from the parent component, we need to use query selector and we'll be seeing how. So this is the agenda for today. So let's quickly begin. Okay, so first we are going to look into what is binding. So in LWC, always the default is one-way binding. Now, what do I mean by that? I have created a track component one. So it has a HTML and JS. In the HTML, what I've done is I've added a lightning input field and I'm saying that enter the first name. Okay, and in the JS, I have simply created a variable called name. I have already populated its value as Namrata. So here I'm displaying that variable that I've created over here by putting it in curly braces. And I've also added that over here. So this is how it looks like. But let's say if okay, 1 minute. Okay, I think I had not refreshed enough after I had deployed, but anyhow, now what here I've done is I've created a variable called nameware. Okay, and in the JS I've created this nameware. I've added Namrata over here, and I have just displayed it over here. So when I say one-way binding, what does it mean is whatever I've written in the JavaScript will move to the HTML. Okay. So from model, which is the JS, it will move to the view. It will show the value. But let's say when I'm typing something here, it is not automatically going to change the value in this variable, right? For that, I need to do something. So what do I mean to say is, okay, so you see here the name where is showing the default value that I've passed from my JS. But in order for me to, when I write something over here and I want that to get passed to the JS variable again, I need to do something, right? So for that two-way binding, how we need to handle is we need to write a on change. So what I'll be doing is on change, I'm calling handle change method, and in handle change, I'm saying this dot name where would be the event which is fired by this one dot target dot value. So whatever value is there in this field would get reflected or would get copied into this variable, and this variable name where we have displayed over here, right? So now this time the value should change. So let me deploy this to the OR. Okay, it is deployed. Okay, now you see, first time the default name came over here. Let's say I'm changing it now. You see, whatever I'm putting over here is getting copied in that variable called nameware. But now let's suppose instead of using this, what I do is I create a object and I use. So let's suppose in my HTML, I'm doing this way. In the input, I'm saying again first name, but here instead of name where I'm taking a objects variable. So object, let's say, is full name, and within that I have a variable called first name, and I'm trying to display that. Now, what changes I'll make in the uh, JS is I have made an object called full name within which I have properties called first name and last name. Now, whenever there is a on change happening over here, I am trying to put the value in the first name property of the full name. Okay, and the full name dot first name is something that I have displayed over here. So let's see if it works or not. Right now, again, because the default value that I've set in the first name is Namrata and last name is Vora. I'm only displaying the first name, so that is why this. But now when I'm changing the name, I have said, right, that whatever the value is there in that field, please put it in the full names dot first name. But it is not doing that. Why? Because when you use any property of primitive data type, it is by default reactive. But when you create an object or array, it is not reactive. By reactive, what I mean is whatever change you make here, that in that change to come into JavaScript, I need to make it reactive. So how do we make a property reactive is by declaring it with track. So track is only required to make a object or a array reactive. I've imported track. Now I'll say track full name equal to this. And now I'll deploy. Okay, so it is deployed. Let us refresh. Now, again here by default, you see the first name. Now this time when I am putting the name, it is showing us the name in that full name because we have made it reactive by using the at the rate track decorator. So this is about the data binding and track in LWC. Now the next thing that we are going to see is how to pass parent attribute to child attribute. Okay, so let us create two components. Okay, so for communicating from parent, I want to from parent, I want to send the child attribute from parent to child. So how am I going to do that? For that, I've created two components. Here you see LWC child component 1 and LWC parent component 1. Okay. So first, let's go to the child component and let's simply add a lightning card and just put this simple message in child component child message. Now I need to declare this variable that I have used. So I'll go to the child component JS and I'm going to make it API @API. To use @API, I need to first import it. So I've done that. Just save it. Now, why do we use @API? For making a particular attribute or property as public, we use @API. So by saying that, I'm trying to say that I am making child message as public, and this attribute I'm going to use or reference in the parent component. So this is it that I've done in the child. In JS, I've already added the necessary configuration. Now let me go to the parent component. In parent component, let's add a card saying parent component. And in that card, let us call the child component. Now, how do you call the child component is, you would first write C hyphen and then what is the name? LWC. So I would say LWC, then hyphen, then my child component one it is, right? So C capital is there, but that would get replaced with a hyphen and small c. So hyphen child, and then again for component it is capital C. So it would get replaced with hyphen and small c. Component one. Okay. And when I am putting this as the tag, when we have this as the opening tag, same I have to put it in the closing tag. And in our child component, the name was child message, C small m capital, right? So here when we pass uh, our parent attribute into that, I would replace the capital M with a hyphen and small m. So there the property was child capital M message, but here we are writing child hyphen small m message. Okay, and then we have this, right, parent message. So we need to make that attribute over here. So let me go to the JS, and this I don't need to make it @API. Okay, let me just save it. Let us first deploy the child component one and then the parent component one. Coming here, I am just going to write the parent component here. I'm just going to put the parent component because child is as it is enclosed within the parent. I embedded it, so I don't need to explicitly write the child component. Putting the parent component here. Okay, so now we have the component over here, but one thing I forgot, like I'm not put anything in the parent attribute, right? Parent message attribute. So what we could do is maybe we could create a input field here. Handle change I'll put, and in handle change I would populate this value. Let us deploy now. Okay, so here, this part, this entire thing is the parent component. Within that, we have child component. So this message that will be seen, that would be in the child component. Now, whatever I'm writing in the parent, it is getting passed to the child component like you see. And that is how we have passed the parent attribute called parent message that we had over here. That parent message we are passing. Let me just recap. Here is the child component name that I've called. It is, this one is the attribute name in the child component that we had child message you see here. So let me just open here. See, this is the child message. The only difference is that over there we replace this capital M with a hyphen and small m. Yeah, that is how we do it. And this is of no use for now. Yeah, so this is how the um the attribute is getting passed from the parent to child. Now let's look at the next one. So let's suppose I want to pass something from child to parent. How do I do that? So for that, we need to use custom event. So let's quickly see how can we achieve that. So now what we are going to do is, first of all, in the child component, we would make some fields and a button. So let me go to the child component. Let me remove this. Okay. Or let us keep that. That's not a problem. I've just added two input fields. One is name, one is age. And there is a button which would, the label is send to parent. And on the click of that button, I am calling the method handle click. Now, first of all, whenever we are typing some value in the name or age field, we are calling the handle change method. So let me go here and handle change. So if the event.target.name is name f, now what is name f is, I have simply given the name attributes for these fields. So the name field name attribute is name f, and age fields name attribute is age f. So if the target dot name is name f, put it in the name field. Now this is a variable that I'm going to declare here, and age field is also a variable that I am going to declare here. Okay. Now the next thing is handle click, right? When we click on the button, you see a send to parent, I'm going to call handle click method. So I've called handle click. And on the click of this button only, I want to pass the value of this name field and age field to the parent component. So for that, I need to call the custom event. Now, custom event, how do we write the custom event? So the syntax is, first of all, we need to declare the event equal to, and then we would say new custom event. Then there are two parameters in it. One is the event name and the second is the payload that you're trying to pass. Now in the payload, if you are only passing one parameter, right, then you just need to pass that string or whatever you want to. You must write the keyword detail, colon, and then whatever you are trying to pass over here. But because we are passing more than one value, that is why what we need to do is in the parameter or the payload section that we have, the second parameter, in that again we would put curly braces and then we would send two variables over there. Now, because I have two fields, I am just going to put a random name over here. So I've just taken that random name to be name and this one to be age. Within that, I am passing this dot name field and this dot age field. Now, this dot name field and age field are the variables that I have declared here, and its value is getting populated over here when we are changing some value in these two fields. That is when these two are getting populated. When I fire this event, those two fields that entering in the child component, I'm passing it to the parent component. Then at the end, all we are doing is this event that we have defined, we are just firing that event by saying this dot dispatch event and event. Okay, so this was the part that we have done in the child component. Now let's move to the parent component and let's see how will we handle it in the parent component. So what do we do for that is, I go to the parent component, the place where I have called the child component, there itself I'll be using like how we do on change, on click and stuff like that. Similarly, I'll put on here and then whatever was the event name that I've used over here, I'll just copy that name and put on and that event name equal to. So if this event fires, then what do I want to do? So I want to call a method. Now, which method? Let's say I am saying handle custom event. Now, what will happen in the handle custom event? We need to make that method. So let's go to the JavaScript of the parent component. And before that, let's declare two variables over here. I am putting the name as name field and age field. Now, what I'm doing is I'll create a method also. Like you saw in the HTML, the name that we gave was handle custom event, right? So let's create a method called handle custom event. In that, simply what I'm doing is this dot name field equals to event dot detail dot name. Now, why do I write this? Where does this come from? I'll tell you one thing. Remember this event dot detail dot name, right? So in the child component where I was firing the custom event, I had given detail. Within that, I had a parameter called name and a parameter called age. So that is why there I'm writing event.detail.name and event.detail.age. Okay, that is how it is coming from. So I've intentionally taken multiple parameters in order to show you guys how can you do it when you are passing multiple parameters. But let's say if there was a single parameter, what you would have done is just written detail and put that string name. So here when you would retrieve, you would just say event dot detail. That's it. And you would get that string value over here. But because there were two parameters, we further included one curly braces, open and close curly braces, within which we wrote those two parameters. Okay. So we get this name field and age field. Now let's say I want to display it in my parent component. So all that I'm going to do is I'm going to say name from the child that has come is name field and age field. Now these two, we made those variables in the parent component. Here you see, right? Okay. So now let us deploy all this. Let me check if I've added the configuration meta. Okay, meta is there. Okay, that was already there. Okay. So let us deploy the child component 1. Okay, done. Let us deploy the parent component 1. Okay, done. So let me come back here. Okay, right now you see the name from child, age from child are blank. Okay, so let's say this is the child component, right? So in child component, I'm passing the name and I'm passing the age, and then I'm clicking send to parent. Oh, we got an error. Let me check what is the error. Okay, I think the name of the event that I'd written was slightly misspelled or something. But I've exactly copy pasted and now it is working. You see here. Uh, okay, so this is the child component. I'm putting the name and I'm putting the age. The moment I do send to parent, that name and age gets passed from the child component to parent component. And this has happened through the custom event. Now, the next thing that we are going to see is when there is no relationship between two components, then how do we communicate between them? Now, in Aura, we used application event for that, right? But in LWC, there are two ways. The one way is pubsub and the other one is LMS. Now, pubsub, let's see how we can do that. So for pubsub, first of all, the thing that we need to do is, I'll show you a website. I'll paste this website link in the description box. The first and foremost step that you need to do is you need to create a pubsub component by copying the code from here. The entire component is not that important. You could create that component, but the main thing that you want is the pubsub.js. In that pubsub.js, you will copy paste this entire code. So I've done that thing already. Let me show you guys. I've created a component called pubsub component. Here it is. In HTML, there is nothing. In JS meta, there is nothing. Just in the pubsub component, I've copied everything from this Git website that I am showing on my screen. Okay. Now, this is the key of firing the event and registering the event. Firing the event and handling the event. So here you would see they have implemented all these things, and that is what we are going to reuse in the component that we would make. Now, in my case, I've named this component as pubsub component. You could name it as something else, but then that same name you're going to use in the publisher and in the subscriber component, and I'll show you how. So first of all, I've created a pubsub component. You could also create a new Lightning web component, name it anything. Then what you need to do is go to this website. I'll paste its link. Just copy this entire code and paste it in the component that you have created. It's js.js file. Okay. Now, let's create a publisher component. So, I've created a publisher component 1. Now, in the publisher component, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I am going to create a card in which I would put two fields and one button. Okay. I'm giving the lightning card's title as publisher. I'm going to say enter name and enter age. And then on the change of these two values, on these two fields, I am calling the change handler. Other thing is I have called the name of these two fields are name and age respective. So let me just save it. Now let us go to the JS of this one. So we made a handler, right? Change handler. So whenever the name or age is changed, we call this method. So let us make that method. Here we are, and we make it here. Now, like you see, I have put the value that I'm getting from these two fields into these two variables. So we need to declare those variables. So let us do that. Okay, that's about it. And now on the click of button, I want to send the event to the other component. So I want to pass some parameters to the unrelated component number 2. Okay. So how am I going to do that? Now for that, what we need is, first of all, we need to import wire because we are going to use that. Now, secondly, what we need is we need to fire the event, right? So we need to import fire event. From where, like I told you, this component that I created, for me, it is called pubsub component. I told you, right? You could use any name that you want. But then whatever name you are using, you are going to use over here. So I am saying I am going to import this fire event from the pubsub component module. So this would be the name that you have given, but it would be the same name as the component that you have created, that JS file that you copied from Git. Okay, that is one thing that I'm going to import. Now the other thing that I'm going to import is the current pages reference. And for that, I need to write import current page reference from, and then I need to say lightning navigation. Okay. Now the next thing that we need to do is, first of all, this current page reference we have, right? We need to wire it at the rate wire current page reference to a property. Let's call it page ref. Okay. Now in the button click that we have made, we have called handle click method. So let us make that handle click method. So the moment we click on this button, I want to fire the event and I want the other component to get that event. So what is the syntax for that is this fire event that I've imported from the pubsub component. I'm going to write that, and then there are three parameters in that. The first one is the current page reference. So current page reference, we have tied it to this page ref property. So I would say this dot page ref. Then I would give some name for this event. So I would say publishing event. That is the event name. So the first parameter is the current page reference. The second parameter is the event name. And the third parameter is the page. Now again here, you could have sent one parameter also inside the curly braces, but I want to show you guys on how can you send multiple parameters. So that is why for that I have written curly braces. In that I have given two parameters, name and age. In name I've put this dot name field, and in age I've passed this dot age field. Let me just save it, and for meta, let's quickly add the necessary configuration and let's save it. So I am going to publish the, deploy the publisher component 1. Now, what do we need to do in the subscriber component? First of all, what I'm going to do is, I would go to the subscriber component. Have I made it yet? I don't know. Okay, I've not made it yet. So let me create a subscriber component. one. Okay. And here what we are going to do is, again, here we have to import the current page reference and the subscriber also. The third thing that the next thing that we are going to do is, there we were firing the event, but here we are going to handle it. So we need to take the listener and the unregistered listener. So I am going to pick the registered listener and unregistered listener again from pubsub component. So let me give you a look into the pubsub component. Here you see registered listener, then they have unregistered listener, then they have fire event, right? Everything they have over here. And then what they are doing is they are exporting all these things. So when they exported this, that is why we are able to import those things and use it in our component. So now we have imported register and unregistered listener. Unregister is if I don't want to listen to it anymore, I could unregister, but I am not going to do it for now. So now again here we would create a page ref, fire the current page reference to this property called page ref. For wiring, I need to first import wire. Now, inside the connected callback, we would use the register listener that we have imported over here. So I've done connected callback and then register listener. Okay, this one. Now for register listener, there are three parameters again. The first one here is the name of the event that we had fired from the publisher. So in the publisher, the name that we had given was publishing event. So I've copied the same exact name. The second parameter is the method that I'll call in this subscriber component when this event is handled over here. And the third one is this. So these are the three parameters. So let us create this method over here. By default, we have to put one parameter over here. You could name anything for that parameter. I have named it param1. Okay. Now, in this subscriber, I would also create a variable called received val. Now, there we had passed two parameters, right? Let me show you the publisher component. Yeah, I had passed two things, name and age, right? Not just one. And I'm intentionally taking two so that you know how to retrieve it on the other end. So subscriber part, I have, when I call the sub method, by default, whatever parameter that this event would bring, we would get over here. Although you would say how that is happening, but that happens in that way only. Like whenever this event is getting handled over here, the method that we have called over here by default will create one parameter and that parameter will hold all the values coming from this event. So then in this variable that I have made for this subscriber component, I am putting in it the param1 dot name. Like you saw there, we passed two things, name and age. So I'm saying param1 dot name and then param1 dot age. So even if we would have declared three of them, we would say param1 dot the variable name, param1 dot the variable name, and the other variable. So that is how you receive it. Okay. Let me just save it. And now let us deploy the subscriber component also. I don't know if I deployed the publisher component or not. Let me deploy it again. Going back here. Now there are two separate components. Wait, let me check if in the subscriber did I add the meta. No, I have not. Okay, so I need to add that first. Okay. Adding the publisher component over here and subscriber component over here. Okay, one more thing. In the subscriber component, we are not displaying anything, right? So let us do one thing. The received val that we had used now in the uh, subscriber component, let's just show the value of the received val. Like you see here, we created this variable. So all I'm doing here is just displaying the received val. And let us deploy the subscriber component again. Okay. Now let me enter the name and enter the age and publish the event. So you see, the moment I did that and I published, these two components, publisher and subscriber, were not related, but these two value got passed to the other component from the first component by the use of pubsub. Now, like I told you, one of the way to communicate between two unrelated components is pubsub. The other way was LMS, Lightning Messaging Service. So what is the advantage of LMS over pubsub? Now, by default, we cannot, embed a Aura component within Lightning Web Component, right? But let's say I want to communicate from my Lightning Web Component to Aura, okay? Or from Aura to Lightning Web Component, or Lightning Web Component to Visual Force page, or Visual Force page to Lightning Web Component. So all those things are possible through LMS. And additionally, even if two Lightning Web components which are not unrelated, I want to communicate between them, then I can use Lightning Messaging Service. Now, in order to communicate between Aura to LWC, I have not tried that myself. When I do, I'll show you guys. But for now, I'll show you how to communicate between two unrelated Lightning Web components using LMS. So let's quickly begin. Now, for that, what we need to do is inside this Force app main default, right? The first thing that we need to do is we need to create a folder called message channel. So how I would do is I would go here and then click on this new folder. When a new folder is created, then I would name it as message channels. The spelling should be exactly same. Message M small, channels P capital. Okay. Within that, then I would create a file. So I would go here and create a new file. Now name it whatever name that you want to give. I have named it as my message channel, but the extension would remain the same. That would be dot message channel m small c capital hyphen meta dot xml. Now this is the message channel through which the communication is going to happen. So let's say if I want to pass two parameters between two components, then those two parameters I need to declare in this message channel. So what all are the parameters? So let us go one by one. First of all, master label. Now here you could give any master label to this component, but I have given the same name. Here you could see my message channel. So I have given it same name over here. Then we need to expose it. So I would say is exposed true. Then we need to give the description. So the description you could give anything. Now let's suppose I want to pass two fields over here. So what I would do is first, I would write lightning message fields, and within that, I would say field name and its description. So I've given the field name as field 1. Similarly, if I want other field also, again I would make a lightning message fields. Within that, I would say field name and description, and I have given the field name as field 2. So let me just quickly save it. So we are done with creating the message channel. Okay. Now let us create the sender component and the receiver component. So here is my sender component, and here is my receiver component. Okay. First of all, let's put meta configuration, both of them. Done in the receiver. Done in the sender. Okay. Now let us create a button in the sender component, and we are going to make this extremely simple. So I'm going in the sender component. Within the card, I have just created a button, and on the click of that button, I'm calling handle click. Now, you remember in publish and subscribe, we had few parameters when we were publishing the event, and when we were registering also, we had some parameters. Similarly, in Lightning message service also, there are some things that you need to take care of. Okay. So the first thing is, let us import the wire, because that's what we are going to use. The second thing is, we are going to import publish and message context from Lightning message service. The third thing is, we are going to import the channel. So here I would import, and then I would give any name for my channel name from @salesforce slash message channel slash the channel name. Now there is a slight twist over here. The message channel that we created here was, here it is, right? Within message channel, we had named it as my message channel dot message channel hyphen meta dot xml. So here what I would do is, the actual name is only my message channel, right? M capital, C capital. I would put it exactly same, but at the end, I always need to append the underscore underscore C. So that is what I have done. Now, the message context that we imported, right? We are going to wire it with a property called message context. Now, we had written a method, right? Handle click, on the click of button that we are supposed to call. So I've made the handle click. In the payload, what I'm passing is field 1. Okay. What I'm passing is field 1 and field 2. Now, where does this come from? So you remember this message channel that we made, in that the field name that we had put was field 1 and field 2. That is why in the sender component, when I'm firing the event, I'm making a payload with field 1 equal to the name, field 2 equal to the age. And then finally, in the handle click, I am calling publish. Okay. And in publish, then I'm saying there are 3 parameters in publish as well. In the pubsub, I think the 3 parameters were the current page reference, then the event name, and then the payload. Over here, what we have is this dot message context. I'm sorry if the voice had got cut. So what I was saying is, when we were using the pubsub, there were three parameters. The first one was the current page reference, second was the event name, and third was the payload. Similarly, when we are doing LMS, the three parameters that we have are, over there we had fire event and here we have publish. So in publish, over here also we have three parameters. The first one is this dot message context. Second name is the name of the channel where we need to pass the payload, and the third one is the actual payload. So this is the channel name that I've imported from here, and the payload is the one that I've created over here. That is it. That is how simple it is. Okay. We have made the JS. Okay, so we are done. Now in the receiver component, what we need to do is, first of all, in the receiver component, we need to declare the subscription as null. Okay. Now, here also we need to import the, okay, so wait. In the sender component, what had you imported was, you had imported publish and message context. So in the receiver component, we need to import the subscribe and message context from the lightning message service. And the third name, which is the third import, which is there, no, that is common in the sender as well as receiver. The channel name, I'm going to use the same, and import from also, this thing is going to remain the same. Now, I'm going to make two variables over here, F1 and F2. Let me declare them over here. Now, there also we wired the message context, right? So here also we are going to wire the message context. Now, we need to use import the wire because we are using wire here. Now, the next is connected callback. In the connected callback, we are going to call the method name. And in this method name, we are actually going to receive the method. How to do that is, I am going to say this dot subscription. Now the subscription which I had made null earlier, I am going to say this dot subscription equal to, and then in the pubsub you were using register listener, right? But here, and register listener also, I think you were calling from connected callback only. And here also from connected callback, you are calling this method, and in that method you are, there you are using register listener, here we are using subscribe. So I would say the subscribe that I've imported, I would say subscribe. In that, again, there are three parameters. The one is the this dot message context, the same as the sender. Second one is the channel name, same as the sender. But third one in the sender was the payload that we are sending. But here we are receiving the payload. So this is what we have done. I'm saying message and putting this dot handle message. Now this is again a method name. Okay. So let me say, let me create this handle message. So this handle message which is there, I have created handle message with the parameter message. And then this F1 and F2 which is there, no, this dot F1, this dot F2. So I would say message dot field one, field two. Again, these were the names in the message channel. That is why I would say message dot field one, message dot field two. And let us also do one thing. Let us display this F1 and F2 in our receiver component. So in the lightning card, I am just displaying the F1 and F2 that we have created in the receiver component. So now, first of all, let's check if we have added the meta or not. Okay, we have added it. Okay, perfect. Now, I am deploying this sender comp1 and the receiver comp1. Again, I'll go here. I'm putting the sender component over here. And the receiver component below. Right now, F1 and F2 is not having any value. That is why nothing is getting displayed. So on the click of sender button, I've sent two values, Namrata and the age. So that got sent from the sender and receiver. Now, mind it, there was no relationship, parent-child relationship between them, but we were able to send the component or the parameters from one component to other with the help of LMS, Lightning Message Service. Now, the last thing that we are going to see is in Aura, we were able to call child components method from parent using Aura method. So how can we do the same thing? How can we call child components method from parent component? So how could we do that is using query selector. So let's quickly begin. I've created two components. One is parent comp1 and one is child comp1. Now in parent comp1, I've already configured the meta file. Like you could see, I've added everything here. Now all that I'm going to do is in the parent component, I am going to put a lightning card. Okay, wait. Okay, let's do one thing. First, let's go in the child component. So let me go to the child component one. Here it is. Okay, in child component, I'm going to put this card called child component. All that I'm doing here is I am creating a button, and on the click of that button, I'm just calling this method called handle child change. So this is the method that I'm going to write over here. Handle child change. The moment they would click on the button from the child component, a alert would get generated which would say child method called. But because this method I want to call from parent component also, that is why I need to decorate it with the API decorator. So we need to import API and you need to use API decorator over here. So that is it. That is it that we had to do on the child component. Now let's go to the parent component. Okay. Now in parent component, first let me create a card which would say this is parent component. Okay. Now over there, we are going to embed the child component. Now you know the syntax already. You need to say C hyphen child because C there was in small letters. So I would say C, a small c child, and then comp was capital. So C, I would replace the capital C with a hyphen and small c, and it is comp1. So I would add just one over here. This is how I am adding the child component in the markup. Okay. Now, also what I'm going to do is here also I'm going to create a button. I hope you can hear me now. Okay. So here also we are going to create a button over here, and the name is parent button. And again here we are calling handle click method on the click. We are calling handle click on the click of the button. Now, what do we do in the handle click is the moment I would click the button on the parent component, I want to call the method of the child. So how do we do that is I would say this dot template dot query selector, and then whatever name I have used over here in the parent component HTML, like which whatever was the name, which was C child comp 1. So I would say C child comp 1. Then I would say dot and then the method name that I had used in the child component, the one which I decorated with API decorate. So let me go and show you. Here is the child component and this is the method handle child change. So I have just used query selector to get the component, and from that component I'm calling this method. So that is how easy it is. Okay. And then here I've declared configured the meta. So let me deploy the parent comp 1 and let me deploy the child comp 1. I think the parent comp, I think the parent comp 1 has not got deployed. Let us check what is the issue. Okay, I think both of them. Okay, I think both of them have got deployed. I don't need to explicitly use child component. I don't need to use explicitly the child component because inside the parent component, I've added the child component. So here is the parent component. Let me just save it. Okay, we have saved it. Let's go back. Okay. So this part you see here, that much is the child component. When I click on child button, you see child method called. Now, even when I'm clicking on the parent button, the child method will be called, and in that child method, we have declared. And in the child method, all that we have done is showing a alert. So if I click on parent button, you see again the child method got called, and in that child method, the child method called message was there in the alert. So that is what is displayed. So how we were able to call the method of child component from parent component, we were able to use the query selector and we were able to call the method. But additionally, one more thing, that child method which is there needs to be decorated with API decorate. So that is about it. This was about how to communicate between the components in LWC. And for the one more thing is left, which we are going to cover in the next session. If this session helped, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.